Jay Leno didn't just collect supercars, he collected machines you legally can't even register. In 2011, when most collectors were chasing Bugattis, Leno unveiled a turbine-powered jet car that ran on vegetable oil and sounded like a helicopter. Why would anyone build cars that don't belong on roads, racetracks, or even reality? The truth might shock you. 10. 1969. Panthermobile. A car longer than a limousine and stranger than science fiction. The 1969 Panthermobile isn't built for speed, it's built to shock reality. Originally crafted for the Pink Panther show, this 23-foot fantasy on wheels is part art installation, part automotive fever dream. Created by Ed Newton and Bob Reisner's Show Cars crew, its structure uses an Oldsmobile Toronado chassis but takes every other design rule and throws it out the window. The cockpit is open air. The driver wears a helmet. There's no windshield in the traditional sense, just a bubble canopy that pops like a cartoon prop. Instead of a rearview mirror, it uses a camera feeding into a black and white TV. And behind the driver, a fully furnished pleasure capsule with shag carpet, pink velour, a cocktail bar, and a princess rotary phone. It's pure 1960s decadence. Vegas meets Jetsons. So how did it end up with Jay Leno? He tracked it down in decaying condition, drawn not by performance specs or racing heritage, but because of what it represents, a forgotten era of cars built just to be stared at. The original build cost over $100,000 in 1969. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $800,000 today. Still, it was never street practical. You couldn't park it anywhere. You couldn't daily drive it. You'd never take it to a drive-thru. But that's exactly why it matters. This isn't a car, it's a statement. And it kicks off our list because it dares to ask, what if a car existed purely to make you stop and stare? 9. 1966. Lincoln Continental Convertible. A presidential silhouette, Hollywood lore, and 7.6 liters of rolling luxury. Jay Leno's Lincoln Continental isn't modified or restored. It's a preserved relic with a pulse. The story starts just 3 miles from Jay's garage. An elderly gentleman, possibly a former roommate of Marilyn Monroe if the tale holds, had kept this 1966 Continental convertible in near pristine condition for decades. When Jay bought it, the white leather interior was original. The odometer read just over 64,000 miles. No repaint, no modern retrofits, just time capsule purity. Under the hood lives a 462 cubic inch V8, one of the largest engines Ford ever dropped into a passenger vehicle. It's the kind of torque-rich monster that barely needs throttle input to move its weight. But performance is secondary here. The appeal of this car lies in its design. Suicide doors at the rear, seamless chrome, and a feeling of stately drama every time the top retracts. Only about 21,347 of these convertibles were made, and very few exist today in unrestored original form. This isn't just automotive history, it's personal history. Jay didn't chase this car across the globe. He found it in his neighborhood. Its survival wasn't because of rarity, but luck and care. And that adds a dimension beyond rarity, emotion. Because among the carbon fiber hypercars and steam racers in his garage, this understated Continental feels like a quiet conversation in a room full of noise. What does it say about taste when one of the rarest things you can own is a car that looks perfectly ordinary? 8. Morgan. Three-wheeler. It looks like a cartoon. It drives like a rocket-powered tricycle. And yet, Jay Leno swears the Morgan three-wheeler is the most alive car in his entire collection. This British oddity started production in 1911. Well, kind of. The original idea was tax loophole genius. Three-wheelers weren't taxed like regular cars, so Morgan built them for rebels and enthusiasts. Fast forward to 2011, and the legacy rebooted with a vengeance. Jay's version packs a 1,900-liter, 83 cubic centimeter V-twin S&S engine bolted right to the front, exposed like a motorcycle heart, paired with a Mazda 5-speed gearbox. It weighs barely 1,100 pounds. That's less than half the weight of a modern sedan. There are no doors. You step in like a fighter pilot, strap down, and brace. There's no roof, no air conditioning, no power steering, and yet it's addictively engaging. Every bump, every turn, every throttle squeeze is theater. But this car has a timer on its head. Production stopped in 2021 due to emissions rules. That means it already lives in a twilight zone. Too new to be vintage, too wild for mass roads, and just eccentric enough to make it impossible to see in daily traffic. Jay calls it the most ridiculous thing with plates. He means it as a compliment. And once you realize it's less a car and more a grinning mechanical grin on wheels, one question remains. What does driving fun even mean in a world of software-controlled sedans? 7. 1906. Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup Racer. It hisses, groans, and smells like a 19th century train station. Jay Leno's 1906. Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup Racer isn't just a car, it's a time machine made of brass and fire. Built as a replica of the original Vanderbilt Cup race cars, this vehicle embodies the fearless era when steam competed with gasoline, and often won. Back in 1906, these steamers dominated speed records. They didn't roar, they screamed. Jay's version features a 30-inch boiler upgraded from the original 26, giving it more power. Starting it requires patience. You preheat the water with a blowtorch. You monitor pressure gauges like an airship engineer. Then, when it's ready, you unleash it, and suddenly this relic is flying past modern cars with shocking grace. Once Jay took it on the freeway, LAPD pulled him over. Not because he broke any laws, but because the officers literally didn't know what they were looking at. It's classified as a motor vehicle, yet nothing about it is familiar. The experience is raw. You hear steam venting, linkages clanking, fireboxes crackling. It's a symphony of pressure and timing, and a reminder that speed once came from boiling water, not fossil fuel. There are no others like it roaming the streets. Most live behind velvet ropes in museums. Jay drives his, which begs the question of if a car this old can still make jaws drop in 2025. What exactly have we lost in the name of progress? 6. 1939 Lagonda 512. It's British, it's beautiful, and unless your last name is Windsor, you've likely never seen a Lagonda V12 in motion. Jay Leno's 1939 Lagonda V12 is a replica, but don't let that fool you. It's no knockoff. Built by Lagonda Joe Harding using period-correct components, it resurrects a machine so rare that only 2 Le Mans specials were made before World War II halted production. The originals were commissioned for racing royalty. Jay's tribute is for motoring aristocracy of another kind. The engine? A handcrafted 4.5-liter V12, originally designed by W.O. Bentley, the same legend who built the foundation of Bentley Motors. It's encased in hand-beaten aluminum, perched on a chassis that still uses wood in its structural design. There's history in every rivet. Driving it is ceremonial. No power anything. No digital displays. Just hand-stitched leather, mechanical linkages, and the subtle growl of a motor designed when aerodynamics were theoretical. Its top speed? Somewhere in the triple digits. But this car isn't about numbers, it's about aura. It's what James Bond might have driven if he fought villains in 1939. And despite being a replica, it's treated with the reverence of an original, because it represents a world that barely survived the war, and an era where performance wore a 3-piece suit. You'll never see it pulling into a grocery store. Which makes you wonder, when did driving lose its elegance? And who's keeping that elegance alive? 5. 1994 McLaren F1. The first time Jay Leno saw the McLaren F1, he didn't just admire it, he called it the closest thing to a Formula One car with plates. That wasn't hype, that was fact. Built between 1992 and 1998, McLaren made just 106 units of the F1. Out of those, only 64 were road cars. Jay owns the very first one ever imported into the US, and it's still in pristine shape. Back then, he paid around $800,000. That felt like madness to some. But 2 decades later, offers passed $17 million. One sold at auction for $20.5 million in 2021. But forget the price. Let's talk about why this car still stuns everyone who sees it. It has a 6.1-liter V12, built by BMW's motorsport division. No turbo, no hybrid system. Just raw, naturally aspirated power. 627 horses. It weighs less than a Honda Civic. And the driver? Sits in the middle with 2 passengers flanking either side. That layout alone makes it feel like something from the future. Under the hood, heat shielding uses real gold foil. The car was designed with no compromise. It wasn't built for the average millionaire. It was built for purists, people who drive. Jay doesn't baby it. He takes it out slowly, carefully, but it breathes fresh air, and that's the thing. This car still runs, still shines, still reminds you of what engineering could be before computers took the wheel. But what happens when you take rarity and wrap it in diamond? One car takes that idea to an extreme that most collectors can't even touch. 4 Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita. This car doesn't look real. It reflects sunlight like crushed diamonds because, well, the body is made of white carbon fiber infused with actual diamond dust. The Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita is one of the rarest cars Jay Leno has ever owned. Trevita means three whites in Swedish, but only two were ever made. One of them landed in Leno's garage. The other? Floyd Mayweather bought it and sold it later for $2.6 million. Built in 2009, this car puts out over 1,000 horsepower using a 4.8-liter twin supercharged V8. It runs on E85 biofuel, which adds a green twist to all that muscle. 0 to 60? About 2.9 seconds. But raw speed isn't the whole story. The most controversial detail is the carbon weave itself. Koenigsegg tried creating white carbon fiber for a planned limited run. The process was so expensive and so complex, they canceled it after 2 cars. That decision alone made the Trevita legendary overnight. People called it a street-legal UFO. Mechanics say working on one feels like touching something you shouldn't, like it belongs in a lab, not a garage. And Jay? He drives his. Carefully, yes, but he drives it. This car's value is impossible to pin down. Some say $5 million. Others say it's priceless. But one thing's clear. It's more sculpture than vehicle, and seeing it in traffic would be like spotting a Fabergé egg at a truck stop. But what if a car didn't sparkle? What if it snuck up on you with black paint, red stripes, and racing secrets buried in its VIN? 3. 2017 Ford GT. This car wasn't just sold, it was assigned. You couldn't walk into a dealership and buy one, you had to apply. Ford built only around 1,000 units of the 2017 Ford GT, and early on they picked just 500 people to own it. Jay Leno got build slot number 12. Why? Because he drives his cars, knows his history, and Ford trusted he wouldn't flip it for profit. That was a real concern. Owners had to sign an agreement promising they'd keep the car for 2 years minimum. Jay's GT arrived in gloss black, sharp red stripes cutting through the middle like a war paint line. He paid $506,252. Every dollar shows. The car runs a 3.5-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6, straight from Ford's Le Mans winning race car. It's loud, light, and brutal. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Top speed? 216 miles per hour. The body's all carbon fiber. Active aerodynamics shift on the fly, and the car has a race mode that drops it down like a coiled animal. Jay compared it to a stealth fighter. Fast, sharp, and built for something more than the road. But the real secret? This car, despite being street legal, was banned from being resold too soon. A few high-profile lawsuits came out of that rule. One owner even flipped his car early and got sued by Ford. So, what happens when you throw the rulebook out completely and build a car around a turbine, powered by jet fuel and born from a sketch on a napkin? 2. 2006 GM EcoJet. It started with a sketch on a cocktail napkin. Jay Leno sat with GM's design boss at dinner one night, and by dessert, they had the blueprint for a jet-powered car. The EcoJet runs on a Honeywell LT101 turbine engine, the same kind you'd find in a helicopter. It spins at over 50,000 RPM and delivers 650 horsepower. No pistons, no crankshaft, just fire, air, and speed. It runs on biodiesel, mostly soybean oil, but has a small tank of jet fuel just to get things started. This car doesn't sound like anything else. It whines, howls, and vibrates like a sci-fi machine. People think it's fake when they see it, like a movie prop, but it's very real. Built with a hydroformed aluminum chassis from a Corvette Z06, wrapped in carbon fiber and Kevlar. It even has a voice-controlled Windows Vista system built into the dash. The EcoJet wasn't meant to sell. It was built for curiosity. Jay wanted to see if a turbine car could actually work on the street. It does. Sort of. The heat is brutal, the noise is constant, but it moves like a rocket on pavement. There's just one problem. When this car stops, the turbine keeps spinning for minutes. Mechanics call it the ghost in the engine. People have walked away from it and come back to hear it still breathing. But what happens when you build something even crazier? Something heavier than a pickup truck, with an engine stolen from a tank, and enough torque to rip asphalt? 1. Blastoline Special. Tank car. Most people collect toys. Jay Leno collected a tank engine and asked, what if we gave it wheels? The Blastoline Special, known as the tank car, doesn't whisper. It thunders. Built in 2001 by artist-engineer Randy Grubb, this 9,500-pound monster runs on a 29.3-liter V12, the same Continental AV 1790 used in the M47 Patton battle tank. Originally built to move a 50-ton tank, this engine now lives in a long, low roadster that looks like it escaped a war museum. Jay got the car and said, "Let's take it further." So he added twin turbos and fuel injection. The result? 1,600 horsepower. Torque? Over 3,000 pound-feet. That number doesn't sound real until you realize most modern trucks average around 400. This thing could tow a locomotive. One test run on the freeway ended with an oil line failure. 17 gallons of oil dumped across the lanes. The freeway shut down. Jay just laughed. That's what happens when you drive a rolling war machine. It's hard to overstate the scale of this thing. The hood stretches longer than a Chevy Suburban. The exhaust pipes look like bazookas. And the fuel economy? Around 5 miles per gallon? On a good day, people don't wave at this car, they stare. Some back away. It's too big for most garages and too loud for most cities, but Jay drives it anyway. Carefully. Proudly. Because nothing else comes close. But what if I told you that the car before this one, the one that looks like it flew here from another galaxy, was originally built for someone else, and almost never made it to the road? Some machines were never meant for roads. They were meant to whisper secrets to those who'd listen. Click the next video on your screen right now before it disappears. It reveals what happened next.